Hi everyone, welcome in. Thank you for joining me. My name is Marlene and I am with A Room to Bloom, and I do have a visitor here sitting on my desk. So I guess I should say. Well, a few days ago I started just reading uh, a little message out of a book. Um, and the book is called Boomerang Joy, and it's by Barbara Johnson. I didn't even finish the the message, but what she starts talking about in this book is that there are no perfect people, and she talks about getting calls from mothers who have, who are saying um, they're losing it or they lost it. They're just simply overwhelmed. And as I read on, I mean, I won't get into all of that, but there was something that came to me, and it was about these mothers again that were losing it, and they were losing themselves in motherhood is basically what it was, or all of the duties in being a mother. And what it really brought me to is that these mothers or someone is wanting to be seen because it felt like they weren't being seen in all that they were doing. Um, so what came to me are the words, are you looking over someone or are you overlooking someone? So this calls us to ask ourselves that question deeply and to really pay attention to those in our life. And imagine as you go through your day with people you care about and love. And, or, if you have a responsibility, say as a parent, pets included, right? A parent or a caregiver, whatever that is. So many times I think we might think, are we looking over someone, like watching over them, or are we overlooking them? So it's there's a balance in that, right? So I wrote some things down, so you have to work with me for a minute because I wrote it in pencil and I wrote it like I said, a couple 2 or 3 days ago. Here's an example of this. So I was a witness to this at some point in my life. I was an observer to this. Someone had received tickets to a big game, which is so interesting because today someone invited me to a baseball game. And it happened to be a baseball game. So they received tickets to this big game. This person was talking about who they could invite. They were trying to think, because the tickets came kind of at the last hour, right? So they were trying to think of anyone that they could invite. And they had 4 tickets. But what happened is there was someone standing right next to him who was in this person's life, right? And it happened to be his young son. But imagine this person was taller and the younger son was obviously smaller. I saw this young son looking up as his father as he kept thinking, and was saying out loud, well, I wonder who I could call. Who could I invite to this game? And the son, tapping on his father's side, like, hey, wasn't interrupting him, but was trying to get a word in edgewise, if you will, like, what about me? As I was observing this longing in his son's eyes, someone else said the words, well, why don't you take your son? And it was as if the thought had never crossed this person's mind. All of a sudden I could see the shame run across his face. He was a father and he didn't even consider his own son who stood right by him. The person who had said something was a family member who happened to be all about their own children, their grandchildren, and who supported those people in so many more ways other than money and or basic needs. This person overlooked someone who absolutely should have been considered. Okay, so so I guess I didn't have my pages. Oh, wait, let's see. Someone who stood right there next to him and not only saw who he not only saw every day, but was his own son. This is what happened, right? It was someone he could see with his own eyes, but he wasn't seeing with his heart. God doesn't do that. Overlook anyone. God looks over everyone. Even at times when we feel overlooked by others, we are looked over by God. It takes an overlooking to see the bigger pieces that are coming together, or having a higher perspective, if you will. We as humans are being called to stop overlooking those that others aren't seeing, and to really resolve and to come to ourselves, who have we been overlooking? So this friend who invited me to a baseball game today, I have written on this and spoken on this, right? Even though someone may say no, right? Or you expect them to say no to an invite, continue to invite them, because that invite is appreciated, right? By people who are being overlooked. But if people are being overlooked by others, they may be moving through something. And that overlooking can be for a period of time, right? People might be being overlooked at work or in a family situation, or a group dynamic of some sort. And so they are processing that, and what is that all about? So again, we are being called to stop and to ask with each person that we have a relationship with, of whatever sort, right? Are we are we overlooking them in some form or manner, or are we looking over them, right? So, if you take the words looking out for someone, that might make it simpler for you to understand. And the Beatitudes from the Bible are the opening part of the Sermon on the Mount. They make up the first 12 verses of chapter 5 in the book of Matthew. The word beatitude comes from the Latin word meaning blessedness or happiness. Each line begins with blessed are. And I will never forget watching The Chosen, and the way that they did the scene. How Jesus was speaking these words and Matthew was recording the words, and there was a scene. Each time he spoke these words, he would be drawn to like a different disciple, or a different disciple, and he'd be thinking of a scenario with the people that surrounded him, right? So in Matthew 25:35 through 40, Jesus says, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat." I have goosebumps, explaining that when you help the needy, you do it for him. In the same verse, Jesus notes that clothing the naked is equivalent to clothing him, saying, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you have done for me." In Luke 3:11, John the Baptist tells the crowd that anyone with 2 tunics should share with the person who has none. It's interesting that I'm writing while being seen. One of my cats just came up to me looking for affection, and after a while he lays down on what I am writing. I pull a paper out from under him, but only after he has rested his head on a book on my desk, not the book that I was reading earlier. That was in the living room, but I just happened to bring it in here today. This one where he has his chin rested on is titled God Sees Her. 365 devotions for women by women, and it says Our Daily Bread. Now this is really interesting. So as I take that in, And of his sister, I'm sorry, in the depth of it, his sister comes up and jumps up too. Right when I'm saying God sees her, or reading that, looking for affection, attention, and love. And so I pause before I start again and I make her feel seen. I didn't brush her off or shoo her away pretending she didn't exist. I paused and I redirected my focus to her as I did. That got a. I'm sorry, my writing was kind of messy here. Oh, I know. As I did that, I got a scent of a body spray that is an old bath and body spray, and the name of it is Peace. Now, this Peace body spray has been retired for a number of years, but I clearly got that scent. Okay, so I took that scent in appreciation, remembering the word is peace, knowing it's sorry, it's something of the spirit, but it immediately brought me to a person that I know, and this was her favorite scent. I immediately remembered how she would do things to be seen. And from my perspective, she lived in the shadow of her older sister when she was younger. Not to the fault of her sister, but to the parents who were used to giving their attention to their first child, who must have struggled to balance their attention between their children. The words that are coming to me, or were coming to me at that time, were the golden child. In Google's AI overview, a golden child is a family role in a dysfunctional or narcissistic system where one child receives excessive praise, preferential treatment, and idealization. While it looks like favor, this status depends entirely on the child being an extension of the parent and meeting impossible expectations. So again, the golden child, I had printed this off of AI just to, use that. But again, what it speaks about with the characteristics of a golden child is perfectionism. A child feels forced to achieve high marks in school, sports, or career to maintain approval. No room for flaws or mistakes, or independent opinions are not allowed or excused. Special treatment. They are often shielded from consequences or basic accountability that siblings face. And sibling tension. Other siblings may resent the favoritism, creating high friction and division in the family. And then it speaks on the hidden psychological costs. It says conditional worth. Love feels tied strictly to performance rather than affection for who they truly are. Identity loss. They struggle to find their own desires, hobbies, or boundaries separate from parental demands and adult struggles. Many face severe anxiety, burnout, imposter syndrome, or difficulty handling regular life challenges later on. Now, this is coming to me right now. It just so happens I was watching an episode of a television show with attorneys, and in this one, this like 16-year-old kid who had a multi-billion-dollar company because he created some software. His father would not let him go out of the country to receive this award that he had won. And so he wanted to have emancipation from his father, and through this process it was found out that he was never formally adopted, that their blood types didn't match. There was just this whole thing about it. But in the end, it turned out that really the father was trying to save this kid from other circumstances. However, it portrayed this golden child, kind of some of these characteristics of it, like not letting the kid make his own decisions. But the underlying thing is that was not what it was about. So let's just keep going on here. So I wanted to read the Beatitudes because they're really moving, and it helps us to think about who are we here to help. But before I do that, I realize I have another page here. So it also reminds me that yesterday I drove by a field of sheep, and there was a black one that stuck out. But then I was taking a second look, and I thought, were those goats, right? But I wasn't so sure because of the speed I was going at and such. So either way, there was a black one. It was the opposite of the golden child. The black sheep or the scapegoat, whichever one. While often used interchangeably, they are distinct roles in family and group dynamics. So yesterday, when I wrote this, that same day, I also saw a bakery stand. So, like this book said, like our daily bread. I saw a bakery stand, and that someone had put a lot of love and care and energy into it. It captivated me so much that I decided to turn around and take pictures of it. Now I see why it says our daily bread, right? So what do you consider your daily bread? That which just fills you up? Not that just fills you up, but that sustains you, right? Daily bread comes in so many ways other than food. It comes from the way of the words of God. It comes from inspiration, from following our hearts. Although everyone may not understand, our daily bread comes from good works and from good rest. One more thing that I just remembered that day is that I saw a picture of 8 loaves of bread on a YouTube that said, "This isn't real bread." Now, I didn't watch it, but it really is interesting. They were saying that there were 3 loaves that were. It leads us to ask ourselves, what is the real bread in our life and what sustains us, right? Okay, so let's get to these Beatitudes here. So it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And again, I have goosebumps in reading that. Again, that is Matthew 5:3-10. I wanted to take a moment and talk about the differences and characteristics between the black sheep and the scapegoat. While often used again interchangeably, the black sheep and the scapegoat are distinct roles in family and group dynamics. A black sheep is an outsider who differs in values or lifestyle, while a scapegoat is actively and unfairly blamed for the group's problems. The black sheep stands out due to different beliefs, choices, or traits. And I have church bells going off right now. Often characterized by emotional distance or being left alone. May embrace the role voluntarily to live authentically. Focuses on non-conformity rather than causing harm. So someone who is different than the rest. The scapegoat, that's actually really interesting because I have a number of videos that are not live, or let's see, active, that you can access them, right? I don't know, I was kind of going through them the other day, and there was one, I haven't really looked at them in a really long time, but there was one where I was speaking about that, where one thing is different than the other, right? So like the black sheep. And then the scapegoat is singled out to carry the blame for family or group dysfunction. Subject to active hostility, criticism, and manipulation. They are used by others to deflect attention from deeper issues, systemic issues, often acts as the truth teller who challenges toxic control. Now, I can't remember, but again, in The Chosen, there was this part about the scapegoat, and I don't know if you can Google it, look it up, but it was really interesting. I didn't go back and rewatch it, but I would like to, because it was portrayed really interesting, how that came about, I guess. So again, let's just take a moment and ask ourselves this question. Are you looking over someone, or are you overlooking someone? And is that because are you looking over them because they are the golden child? Are you overlooking them because they're a black sheep or a scapegoat? From your perspective, everyone deserves care, love, kindness, patience, respect. And the tables can turn, because in a family, you may be the golden child, but at work, you may be the black sheep, or you may be the scapegoat. And, again, in different groups, in different situations. So think about that, because these roles can change. And so, we are all uniquely made in His image. And so we are all here for a reason. Anyway, I want to say thank you for joining me. If you are feeling overlooked, remember that this, or if you are feeling overlooked, just remember that we experience that feeling, that experience, so that we can help to see others who are being overlooked, right? Jesus was accused of eating with tax collectors, women of ill repute, prisoners, right? And that's, he said, I didn't come to heal the healthy, I came to heal the sick, right? And so this is a beautiful combination of remembering, where are we at in our life? When have we ever felt ousted? When have we ever felt outcast? And did we change who we were so that we could fit in, even though it was really just an illusion? We were pretending to fit in. We were covering up. So just kind of thinking about that. In what ways, what did you let go of because others, you could kind of feel either pressure from a group or maybe a family dynamic. Did you just pretend, or did you continue to be who you are at your most authentic self, right? I like this one part here where it says, hold on, I want to find it. They may embrace the role of the black sheep voluntarily to live authentically as who they are. Anyway, so that is the message. I want to say thank you for joining me. I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.